Hello, everybody. Please take your seats. I would ask you to come forward. Please come forward. Hello, everybody. We want to start. So please take your seats. Are we ready? Okay. So, Karine, are we ready? Can we start? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this COP27 side event led by KKL-GNF Israel, focusing on climate crisis adaptation. I'm Dr. Doron Markel, Chief Scientist of KKL-GNF, and it is my honor to moderate this event. KKL-GNF is the largest green organization in Israel, which has been developing and managing the forest and the land conservation in Israel for many years. It is actually the Forest Service of Israel. On top of that, during the last few years, KKL-GNF has shifted to be even more proactive in the battle against the climate crisis. Hence, it operates in the three main fields of climate efforts: mitigation, adaptation, and education. However, in this event, we give our full attention to adaptation and to sharing knowledge about it, because we all understand this is about our survival. Like what an American poet said once, adaptability is a simple secret of survival. In this event, various strategies for climate change adaptation, especially in drylands ecosystems, will be presented by experts from Chad, Ghana, Israel, the International C4 Organization, and the EU Prima Foundation. We will first listen to short presentations by the experts and later have a short panel of discussion. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Eli Cohen, the Corporate Secretary of KKL-GNF, and I would like to thank Mr. Amnon Ben-Ami, CEO of KKL-GNF, who is here with us today. Amnon is directing the daily efforts of KKL-GNF in the battle against the climate crisis. I would also like to thank Ms. Corinne Bolton, Head of International Relations and Affairs of KKLJNF, the initiator and the manager of this event. Thank you, Corinne, for your all efforts and hard work to make this event happen. Thank you. First, let's see a short video representing KKLJNF's environmental and climate efforts. The video, please.
Earth, the ground from which we grow. Water, the flowing source of life. Forests, the breathing lungs rooted in the soil of this earth. Nurturing Israel's earth, water, and forests for over 120 years, KKL-JNF is a leading international NGO committed to innovating sustainable solutions that balance human and environmental needs. Struggling with Israel's dry climate has driven us to research and develop nature-based solutions for climate change mitigation and adaptation. Our wide range of land development projects includes rehabilitating degraded land and ecosystems, planning and preserving open spaces, and cultivating agricultural communities. KKL-JNF supports R&D centers, creating groundbreaking agricultural techniques and technologies. Israel, the land of milk and honey, is chronically short on water, so we cherish every drop. To save freshwater resources, KKL-JNF has developed cutting-edge solutions, including recycled water storage, biofilters, and efficient watershed management techniques. We rehabilitate rivers and water habitats and construct water reservoirs that adorn the land with sparkling blue gems. 70 years ago, much of Israel's land was degraded. Tree by tree, we lovingly restored the landscape, stabilizing the soil, strengthening biodiversity, and improving quality of life. Today, KKL-JNF forests serve as living hubs for community, education, health, and well-being. KKL-JNF is committed to meeting the needs of today and building a better tomorrow, locally, nationally, and globally. We contribute to the global efforts for a sustainable planet by sharing our accumulated knowledge. As the world's population increases, maintaining the human-nature balance becomes more and more challenging. Smart planning that integrates nature with urban development will become more critical in the coming years. Together with our partners and supporters worldwide, KKL-JNF will continue to strive for a better, more sustainable world for us and the generations to come. KKL-JNF, innovating sustainable solutions.
And now, allow me to present our first speaker, KKL-JNF Central Region Director, Ms. Anat Gold, former Director of the Planning Division. Anat will discuss the topic of urban backyard rehabilitation and afforestation, a case study of the Israeli Negev, our desert. Anat, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning to all. I want to share with you how we take a degraded lands in the middle of the cities in a desert and arid desert zone and return them back to the benefit of the nature, back to the benefit of the public. And it became to be a model that we copied from one city to the other. And of course, it's also offer us a new land for urban forests, which are so important in the arid zone. Just a little bit background about Israel. Israel is a small country located in the Middle East, surrounded by 4 Arab countries, Egypt in the south, and we have about 22 million dunams. 1.5 million dunams are for forest and afforestation. As Doron mentioned, our government, Keren Kayemet Israel, is also the Israeli Forest Authority, so we have the duty to plan, to maintain all the forest area. Over the years, we have planted about 240 million trees. I don't know if you know, but in Israel, most of the forest area are all planted. Very few are nature. So although the country is very small, it has 3 climate zones. Up in the north, we have the Mediterranean zone, we have the semi-arid zone, and the arid zone. So it's mean a different landscape, different species of forest and afforestation, and different conditions. So we will be focusing the Negev, which is the southern region of the country, which is a very dry desert, and it about 60% of the massland of the country, but has just 10% of our population, and it's characterized by a few forest area. Although the biggest and the largest area of forest is in Yatir, located in the Negev, which is very famous around the world because it's a climate center, research climate center. So also the Negev characterized by wadis, dry river beds that they provide us the new proposal for urban forest, new parks, and provide us new lands. So if you look for about this air photo, you can see the capital of the Negev, Beersheba, and the cities around there, Bedouin and Jewish as well. And each city in the Negev crossed by a dry riverbed. And Keren Kayemet over the years, as you can see, planted a green belt, a forestation green belt around the cities. So here you see until the 2000, in the past, in the biblical time, the wadis were source of life, gathering point, and then unfortunately in our period became to be degraded areas, background of the city, full of sewage, as you can see, full of garbage and trash, full of mining, animals, and eyesore. So our vision was how to return abandoned and degraded areas back to the benefit of the city, back to the benefit of the nature, back to the benefit of the public. So we promote a master plan with a lot of partnership, with a lot of governmental office, municipality of Beersheba, River Authority, Ministry of Environmental in Israel, and we push a project, a park that changed, that was an agent of change. And as you can see in this air photo, Beersheba, which is the capital, for many years just grew to the north and abandoned all the southern of the river bed. And here you can see in zoom in how it was, mining, dirty place, full of sewage, pools, etc., etc. So after 8 years that we ran the process of statutorical plan, a board, we look for a source of budget and a partnership, we started develop this park. This is in 2008. And then the swimming pool became to be the biggest artificial lake in Israel, 90 dunams, that is full of recycling water. Once again, Keren Kayemet, our organization, we have built a reservoir to collect the sewage from the city, recycling, and bring it back to irrigate the fields, the agriculture fields around, and the park itself. And here is some degraded lands that became to be an open amphitheater. And now it's a very lively amphitheater. It hosts a lot of musical concerts, etc., etc. So to combine, to connect between the sides of the city, we have built some promenades and bridges. Here you can see the Turkish ancient bridge. And today it's a lively park. Here you can see again the process, the long process that we have developed. But what is most important is that we got a metropolitan park. We got a huge park in Israeli scales and in arid zone scale. We got an opportunity for more and more lands for urban forest. We got the opportunity to give the public a place for recreational activities, leisure activities. And if I will sum it all up, our achievement are first, we got a model that we can copy from each place to another in the Negev city and around the world. And it's improved the image of the city. It's improved the plan of the city. It's increased the value of the lands around. The sector private started to invest there. And for us, it's also made us the opportunity to connect the open landscape in the heart of the city with the green belt afforestation and the forest around Beersheba. And we are part of the board of this huge park. It's already been 20 years that we are dealing with, and we are not done, but it's a huge project. And again, what is important is that it's a model. So thank you so much, and I hope later on to share more about that.
Thank you, Anat, for your presentation. We'll continue. And our next speaker is Dr. Michael Sprintzin, Kekel Genev's forest engineer in the Western Negev and Kekel Genev's expert in remote sensing. Michael will present the many benefits of our station in rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doron. Good morning, everybody. Well, I really represent the forestry department of our organization, and by means of the Forest Service, well, I'm not used to speaking to the microphone, and by means of the Forest Service of Israel, and we all know today the forests play a crucial role in mitigating climate variability, in increasing the entire resilience of ecosystem, and in land rehabilitation. So I'll give you a brief presentation of what we do, when we started, why we started, how we do it, and then I'll show you what we have in the end. And all this by bearing in mind that trees are not growing naturally in Israel, in any place, specifically not in drylands, which is a tiny piece of land, maybe 60 to 70 kilometers wide, north to south. We have to plant them, we have to carry them, we have to ensure their sustainability and survival. Now, just to mark the starting point of our activity, I brought here these two pictures. First, on the upper left, was taken by Mark Twain in the mid-19th century when he visited in the land of Israel. And what he saw was the gray land with no color, no vegetation, and he described it as a heartbroken and hopeless. To be honest, more or less century later, the situation did not change dramatically, and this picture, the lower right, was taken by attendee of a UNESCO conference on soil conservation that was held in Jerusalem in mid-20th century, and all the participants still saw the land as very degraded, very eroded, and they describe it as a man-made desert. The situation has changed. However, we still can find some unmanaged areas, and this is an example that were taken recently in Negev. You see the gully erosion and the gully head that. And these are the gully heads that advance in several meters each decade, and all the soil around it just eroded into the stream and eventually washed up to the sea. It also presents the interface between unmanaged and agricultural field, and we know that the runoff, the water runs off from the field to the stream, hits the banks, increasing widening the bank, and again, we are losing the productive soil, which is all the desertification is about. So our goals were to rehabilitate the land, to green a landscape, and of course to maintain the quality of the environment by providing all these ecosystem services to the public. We work for the people that live around and not already mentioned it. Now, we all know that in desert it's all about the water. We have to harvest it, and we have to navigate it to the planting pit by means of that to increase the amount of the water available for the plant to grow. Okay, we use two general techniques to manage the runoff. First, we build counter banks on the hills. These are small dikes that stops the runoff and collect the water here. You see it over there. Oh, sorry. You see it over there, and it's navigated into the planting pit. These are well managed and grown trees in a counterbank. And another technique are the small catchments along the stream, one below the another, like a staircase, or alongside the road. They called limans. They collect the water, they increase the soil water content, so the land could bear more biomass, so we can plant in higher densities, ensuring hopefully the grow rates and survival of the trees over there. Now, because the climate is very dry, and I probably cannot see that it is becoming more humid, we should be very specific on when we plant. So the window of opportunity to plant trees in the desert is also only about 2 to 3 months. We plant it only during the winter when the soil water content is high, and then the plants should survive long dry spell that could last up to 10 months, depends on the year. So we also should be very specific on what we plant. Now, we have two general guiding principles in choosing the species. First, we plant drought-tolerant species, and another, we try to use as many as possible endemic species, the species that adapted to the specific environment, to the specific habitat. Well, this is an approximate list of our opportunities. We have several pine trees, acacia, we have eucalyptuses, we have cypresses, tamarisks, and etc. It sounds like a long list, but it is not, because the environment and the landscape is very, very diverse, so we have to be very specific by choosing the right species to the right habitat. Now, planting itself is a process. We mechanically dig pits along the banks, whatever it is, counterbank or the liman. We put the tree into the pit. We attach the plastic tube around the sapling to prevent it from grazing and to produce specific microclimate within it. Okay, and then we put a plastic blanket around it for both preventing the soil evaporation and increasing the albedo to cool the surface. And then we water the trees. Now, the irrigation takes 3 years approximately from the year of planting. We irrigate 3 times during the first year, 2 times during the second, and 1 time during the third year, and then we let the forest grow like naturally. Now, several examples of how the land was before we start planting. This is exactly the same area before we start planting, and then 5 years after the forest was planted, and it shows several things. First, the runoff regulation, and this is a mistaken runoff, the runoff regulation and watershed management. We build counterbanks on the hills and limans in a stream. In a streams, okay? And then we planted, we build a road network for us to be easy approachable, both for irrigation and firefighting. And another thing that we see here is a comparison between planted and desertified land down there on a lower picture, okay? This is another example of watershed management. You see counterbanks on the hills, lemons in the stream. We rather use this watershed management than the small catchment because that's the point, the entire point of runoff regulation in the desert. And that's like maybe the most important in my presentation because it shows the entire heterogeneity of the landscape, how the interface between forest and agriculture of different types, and how we use all those gullies that were active before, that I saw you in one of the first slides, how we use them to prevent the erosion. We plant the trees alongside the banks and making soil more solid and more stable. Okay, this is another example of mature lemon, different types of species. You see eucalyptuses on the bottom and acacia on the top. These are eucalyptuses growing on counter banks. You see how flourishing the lands, the water content is high, so it promotes the understory vegetation to growth alongside the mature trees. And then we use it, or we use it. Animals use it for a shelter from like a shade, and for grazing. And of course, as Anat mentioned, we work for people. And these are the cultural services that we provide to people that live in nearby communities. We have bicycle trails, walking trails. We have a lot of picnic areas. The area is very, very green and very, very active, especially during the winter time. Just to sum up my talk, well, I don't have any specific summary bullets, but I think that this slide could pretty much explain what we do, how we started, and what we have now: green, monocultured, or mixed forest, different species, very green and very, very nice to the eye, okay, to the observer even. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your excellent presentation. Let's go to the next one. And our next speaker will be Dr. Horea Jordi, Senior Scientist at C4 ICRAF organization. Horea will speak about the need to conserve trees and forests not only as carbon sequestrators, but also as the main tool for extreme climate adaptation. Horea, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Toron. Hello, everyone. I am Horea Jordi from C4 ICRAF. And today I would like to share some lessons learned and some experiences C4 ICRAF in terms of adaptation. We know that forest is really kind of known for its role in terms of mitigation, but we see that there is a potential for forests and trees to support adaptation, and this potential, we think, is not yet well included in, for instance, in policies and in interventions. C4 ICRAF, we are an organization, an international research organization. We work in many areas, in many countries, about 70 countries, and a lot of them also drylands. Our expertise, our work is really about forest and trees outside forest too. And we are organized around teams who are trees and forest for genetic resources. They are also looking at adaptation of trees, for the future, sustainable value chains from trees and forest products, climate change and energy and low carbon development, soil and land health, and also governance, equity, and well-being. we have a lot of product, as you see. You can check if you are interested. So why trees and why forest for adaptation, and why now? We feel there is a momentum right now with the NDCs, with the countries preparing their NDCs, with a whole discussion about loss and damage, with the discussion about adaptation. We think this is a good moment actually for us together to bring the power and the possibilities we have with trees. In C4, we did some research in the past where we show actually that the income for people coming from forest is important. It depends on the region, but it could be until 26 or 30% from the income of the household coming from forest product. There are other studies showing that 30% of people in the tropics are highly dependent on nature, which is mostly forest and tree-based. We also have a lot of data and a lot of evidence showing that when trees, and I think Michael, your presentation just showed that, when trees are planted and used in an appropriate and context-specific ways, they have a huge potential to increase the resilience of the landscape, but also to generate incomes and activities for the people living in the landscape. So just here to summarize a little bit, what is actually the contribution of trees for adaptation? We think that trees are a good investment in ecological infrastructure. At different scales, we have different type of trees in different constellations. They can be in fields, they can be in farms, they can be at the landscape, but also, as forests. And they contribute to increasing the productivity and at the agriculture, so really contributing to food security. They produce high-value products, which are very important for income. They have also a very important role in terms of biodiversity and the biodiversity of the forest, but also the linkages between biodiversity of forest and in the fields. They provide shade and they provide other, fodder for livestock, and they also, of course, very important in terms of the biological nitrogen fixation they provide. So there is a kind of a bundle of services trees and forests can provide at different levels, and those also include adaptation services, what we call adaptation services, which means services people use to respond and to adapt to climate change. We did some studies in the Sahel. It was in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and this is just an example where we looked what makes people resilient. What makes people resilient in this region? What we found was very interesting, because in the absence of the financial means, which we know they are not really coming to the local communities until now, in the absence of this financial means, most people rely for their adaptive strategies on two assets. One of them is the natural asset, which always forests and trees, water, and the second one is their social assets, the social capital, so the networks people have when they have an issue with, a crisis, that they can support each other. And this support also happens a lot of times in terms of exchanging ecosystem services, exchanging access to resources, or also food, simply. So this is also related to forests and trees. We have one very great experience in the Sahel, and I guess many of you maybe have heard about it, and this is the regreening of some regions in the Sahel. And this regreening happened by farmers managing natural regeneration. And this place was actually very like the place you showed before, as a desert. And people, just with their means and the support from certain NGOs, including certain changes also in the governance systems in this area, transformed this region to a very green region. They transformed that for themselves. Their income is higher, their resilience is higher, and this experience is really showing how it is possible, just with the potential of trees and forests, to move from very vulnerable region to a region which can support the people living there. There are very interesting and important gender issues in terms of restoration and restoring ecosystem services. Here, this is an example from Burkina Faso, where we looked at how how people, women and men, use restored areas. These restored areas was actually not very big. They were small areas which were restored with the communities, and we looked what they are providing to different groups in the society. And the important thing is that we see that for women, most of the harvest they do in these regions is really directly going to their food securities and the food security of the children. And this is like including nuts, leaves. So, and we saw that when people have this very little restored area, they are more resilient when a drought comes. We saw them being very, they can really kind of adapt better when they have this kind of access to these ecosystem services. This is also the same thing. It's about gender. This is an example from the Sahel again, and this is about the shea nuts. And we see here we had a study with about 700 households, and we saw, and it was just following a very, very terrible drought, and we saw that the household, the women who had access to the nuts, they could really survive the drought better by just selling the nuts and buying food. So here we see how important these ecosystem services are for women. I will here just show a few things where you could have more information about if you want. What we are doing right now here at COPE, we just launched a set of principles. Those principles are there to guide the integration of trees and forests in adaptation. We did this work with FAO, and we launched this report here at COP27. And we do that because we think countries are still needing some guidance in how to integrate this, potential of trees and forests in their policies. We also just launched here a collaboration platform, which is called Trees Adapt, and there we are also showing, some kind of good practices on how to integrate trees and forests for adaptation. We have a very interesting platform also, which is the Agroecology Coalition. If you are interested, please just check in our webpage. And this is really looking at how to scale up solutions which can include, trees and forests for agriculture. I will stop here, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Horia. It sounds like we are ready to collaborate between C4 and KKLGNF in afforestation projects. Let's do it. So let's go to the next one. Let's see. Okay. Our next speaker will be Christenos Bankawa Konifa, Deputy Director, Occupational Health, Safety and Environment, Buick Power Authority of Ghana. Christenos will speak about agroecological food production in Ghana. Christenos, the floor is yours. You have this, you can use it.
Hello, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing this presentation on behalf of the Chief Executive Officer, Buick Power Authority, Honorable Samuel Kofi Jamasi. Just to walk you through what Buick Power do. Buick Power Authority is a power utility company in Ghana under the Ministry of Energy. We operate the second largest hydropower scheme in Ghana. We also have solar power programs that we are running. Our business is to decarbonize through the sale of clean and renewable energy. Let's see some of the portfolios, the renewable energy portfolio that Buick Power Authority has in Ghana. We have a 400 megawatt hydro power. We have a 50 megawatt land-based solar. We currently have the first of its kind in West Africa, a floating solar. 1 megawatt is in operation, 4 megawatts are being installed now. We still continue to develop more solar. 200 megawatt solar is under construction. We are in the process of acquiring various land areas in the northern part of Ghana where solar radiation is very efficient to continue to have more solar programs. We're also exploring, we want to get more base load. And the base load, we are doing feasibility studies in our western rivers in Ghana where we want to have more hydro so that we can have the base load, we have the solar, and we can hybridize. We're also exploring wind potential, biomass, and other renewable energy sources in Ghana. To do this, we have to be mindful of climate change and rainfall. So we are implementing what we call the Bui Power Authority Forest Resource Enhancement Program. This program is promoting reforestation and afforestation in all our degraded lands. We are also encouraging conservation of the natural forest so that we'll continue to improve on precipitation, so that we'll have more water, we'll protect our lake shores against siltation, sedimentation, and other inimical activities that may affect the flow of water into our reservoir. We have 4 cardinal objectives that our initiatives seem to achieve. One, we want to create more carbon sinks so that the greenhouse gases that are being emitted will continue to clean them from the atmosphere. Again, we want to protect siltation, we want to ensure that our lake shores is protected at all times against sedimentation so that we don't have enough silt in the reservoir. We also want to enhance sustainable utilization of our forest resources. You know, local people will depend on forest resources. We want to enhance biodiversity. We want to enhance economic activities through the harvest of non-forest products within our area. And we want to build climate resilient. We want to prevent wind accidents. We want to check windbreaks in our area. We have some approach to this program. And one of them is to establish mandatory buffer zones along our shoreline. We have been able to successfully do that, and in the next slide you will be seeing some pictures. We have also not left out the community. This program cannot be successful without the involvement of the communities. So we're using high labor from the communities to do this. Having learned and having studied this for a period, we are now scaling up. We are scaling this program up, and we're using contractors and some of the community members. The interesting thing is that we'll be able to build communities' capacity to be able to take up some of the projects that we are currently implementing. These are some initiatives that we have been able to carry out successfully over the period. Silvicultural practices, we have established about 423 acres. Silvicultural practices have been very effective and very good. We've been able to ensure that there are no bushfires within these plantations. We've been able to protect the gallery forest within the area. And we've also identified indigenous economic tree species within the area. And there's a policy that guide or prevent the exploitation or the cutting down of these tree species within the area. In 2022 alone, we've been able to establish about 405 hectares of plantation. And this plan will continue. On a year-by-year basis, we want to continue to do about 405 hectares each year. These are some of the tree species that have been identified and are being conserved within our area. In 2022 alone, we've been able to plant these tree species, and it will interest you to note that some indigenous tree species like the shea, dawadawa, papaw, tamarind are being planted within the area. We want to continue to ensure that our local communities have non-forest products. They'll be able to go to pick the nuts. They will continue to improve upon their economic activities. The benefit of this, our program, cannot be overemphasized. One, we want to continue to generate green electricity from our hydro sources. We want to continue to ensure that fisheries, water supply is guaranteed. We want to continue to create more forests to serve as carbon sinks. We want to continue to improve on the climate change or the precipitation within our area. We want to create job opportunity for our teeming youth around the area. These are just some slides showing some of the activities that are being carried out. These are the forests that have been, some of the forests that have been established by our program. In conclusion, all these climate change initiatives are being carried out by Bui Power alone. We do it with our internal generated funds. We wish to do more, but we are constrained with funding. We are committed to supporting Ghana to achieving the energy transition to net zero emission, and the NDC is set. We are also happy to partner with donors to raise the needed funding to continue to build climate change resilience, to continue to carry out reforestation activities in our area. We want to also partner academic institutions and research institutions to continue to undertake research and development in cleaner alternate energy within the Ghana and beyond. Climate change and global warming are real, and we all need to support Bui Power in carrying out this mandate. Thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you, Christanos. Thank you. It was actually a shift towards mitigation and carbon sequestration. This is fine. But we are going to shift back to adaptation for our next presentation. Doesn't come? Yeah, it will come. Yeah. So the next speaker will be Ms. Nicole Debayo, Deputy General Manager of ANI from the Republic of Chad. Nicole will tell us about the new agro-silvopastoral opportunities for green growth in the land of Chad. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. First of all, I would like to apologize because I'm Francophone, but I will try to do my best to present you this topic in English. Yeah, thank you. So you have on this presentation the investment opportunities in Chad regarding the, you can use this one, okay, thank you. You have in the first presentation the countries, the first slide, the countries presentation, and the investment opportunities in Chad. And most important here is the environmental management framework and the monitoring of the environmental framework. So this is a quick presentation of Chad. You have the capital is N'Djamena, you have the area of Chad, the population is the Chad population is young, is the young people. The median age is 18. The growth of the population is 33%. You have the capital, language, official language, and currency. There is several potential opportunities of investment in Chad, but we decide to present you a few about them. You have agro-pastoral sector, oil and mine, energy, telecommunication, and tourism. Regarding the agriculture, the Chad is a land of agriculture. You can see that we have 38% and 39 million of area cultivable soils, who make Chad like a most important country in Africa in terms of possibility to develop the agriculture. And you have 455 million meter cube of underground water resources. You have 23.3 of natural forest. So you have agriculture and cash crops. The Chad product a lot of cotton for the textile industry. So we have 180 180,000 tons in 2020. You have two Arabic gum. Chad is the second country in the world to export the Arabic gum, and the first in the world in the quality that they call is Taha. We have two, the shea butter. We have Simpson. We have spirulina. So the Chadian spirulina is the best one in the world. It's the first in terms of quality in the world. We have two, onion and garlic. So there is many opportunities investment in Chad. The food processing, rice, corn, maize, flour, production plants, simsim, peanuts, hydroculture facilities, valorization of Arabic gums, and production of improved seeds and inputs. You have one sector is calling it Haz Brondai. The Chad is the first country in CEMAC zone with more than 100 million head of cattle, 84 million areas of pastures, and the same for the area of natural forest and ecosystem, and 155 billion of annual of cash flow, who 54% as excluding oil. So establish investment project. So we have now the refrigeration complex modern, who is built in Jamena, Amjaras. Amjaras is not far from, is north of the country, but there is in Amjaras, in Achi, and in Sar. There is industrial complex and multidisciplinary farm in Achi, who is the east of the country. And there is one industrial tannery in Mundu and Hajar. Mundu is the capital economy. And in construction now, the construction of cattle feed plant in Achi, Kumra, and Hajar. So we have one veterinary pharmaceutical industrial complex who is in construction. The energy in Chad. So the Chad is located at the upper sunny zone on Africa. We have 2,050 south to 3,070 north of sunshine per year. During the summer, we can have, we can record 52 degrees Celsius. So that can show you that we have many sun in Chad. And there is many possibility toward investment project in the green energy too. So now I would like to present to you the environmental management framework. So any investor who came in Chad must be analyzed under all the contour of the law. This law defines general principle of environmental and protection for any investment in Chad. So investors are to adhere to regulating the pollution and nuisance to the environment degree, the regulating of environmental impact studies, and the promoting of the environmental education. Second one, the environmental management framework has led to the national legislative and legal framework for environmental and social management governed by the environmental and social standard. So the EASS are intending to help investors manage project risk and improve their economic and financial performance. There are 6 environmental standards for interest, assessment and management for environmental and social risk and effect. You have to employment and working conditions. You have to efficient use of resources and pollution prevent and management, public health and safety, preservation of biodiversity, and sustainable management and biological natural resources. Stakeholders of mobilization and information. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah. Okay. So last but not least, of course, before we start the panel, I welcome Octavi Quintana, Director of Prima Mediterranean Pavilion at the COP27, who will tell us about Prima and how this foundation progress climate change adaptation. Octavi, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. And just, yeah. Do you hear me now? Yes. Thanks. Well, I didn't say anything that you missed, so I'll go straight away. Thanks, and I'm very honored to be able to present our foundation, which is very young, 4 years, and which, as I explained, is an initiative by 19 countries around the Mediterranean. That's 19 countries, both from the north and the south of the Mediterranean, coming, and you see here the countries involved. All of them except Germany are in the Mediterranean. The fact that Germany is here is because when there is European money, by hazard or not, but Germany is there, and Luxembourg, which doesn't play an enormous role. All the others, as you see, are around the Mediterranean, maybe understanding that Jordan is also in the Mediterranean. We have, it was founded, as I said, very recently, and we have a budget of around 500 million for 7 years, which means calls for 70 million every year. And so far, so in the first 4 years, 18, 19, 20, and 21, because the projects of 22 have not been yet identified, so we are finishing the evaluations. They will be published, the ranking list will be published in the next couple of weeks for 2022. We have 168 projects ongoing. Let me congratulate Karen, who has one of them, This is not easy. It's very competitive. Our success rate is unfortunately very low, from 4 to 7%, which means that those who get it are really because they are very good. So congrats again. So we have so far more or less the balance is between 73 public institutions, 27 private institutions, most of them being SMEs. So I must say all of them being SMEs. I think there is only one exception. All projects, well, 98% of the projects have an SME inside. I'll talk just of the projects on climate change and that do adaptation on climate change. They represent roughly 40% of our project, as we have 70 projects so far, gathering 500 beneficiaries, and the topics that they deal with are mainly selecting varieties resistant to drought, salinity and biotic stress, water-saving technologies, of course, agroecology practices, and there is a lot of intercropping and cover crop and crop rotation. We have one point on mitigation. I mean, it's on adaptation, but since we have one on mitigation, we explain it, which is renewable energy and carbon sequestration. We have quite a few on recycling, valorization on waste byproducts, nature-based solutions, of which we gave a presentation with all the projects 2 days ago here at the COP. And then our star, because, and I mean that this is a star, the Nexus WEFE. Nexus WEFE standing for water, energy, food, and ecosystems. I'm saying that this is a star because we want that as from 2024, most projects, if not all of them, are Nexus. I mean, research on sectorial research is easier, but hardly brings any solution. All solutions need to be Nexus, which means gathering many sectors together. This is not easy, this is very complicated. This means bigger projects with many disciplines, but solutions are complex, are difficult, and otherwise they will be there. So we need to go to real solutions, meaning Nexus solutions. So as from next year, there will be all Nexus. So, well, I will not deal too much into this, but most of our projects deal with incremental adaptations, some of them on system adaptation, and unlike your presentation, we have only one on transformative adaptation, that is for fruits in places that no longer have enough days of cold, so these these crops had to be discontinued. Which are the typical projects? Either natural processes to enhance water availability, and here a lot on groundwater recharge, and we need to understand that the region has a huge problem on groundwater because the groundwater is transboundary and it is very difficult to regulate and to agree on how to share the groundwater that is transboundary water. This is a problem for which at least we try to agree on the measurements, how much water it is, and how to measure the water that is inside each water, then on how to distribute it. This is a political issue that, of course, we cannot enter into. Improve water quality, and for us it's very important, the wetlands and especially artificial wetlands to trees with water, intervention in ecosystems, that's for us also very important, and we have very many projects on agroecology and certainly land degradation and keeping soil as they are. I will not go into the examples because the moderator is telling me that I'm run out of time, but the only thing I can tell you is that since you were presenting previous speakers examples, I just gave a broad picture and trying to encourage you all to participate in PRIMA. We need you all. PRIMA, we want to have as many projects as possible. The good news is that the quality of the project is very high. The bad news is that the success rate is very low. So it's very difficult to get them, but those who get them, it's proof that they are of very good quality. Thank you very much for your attention.
You can stay because we're shifting to the panel, so you can take your seat. Thank you very much. By the way, I think you should update the map because just lately, KKLGNF Israel just won one of your call for proposal. We won a fund for an agrivoltaic research in the north of Israel. So we are going to collaborate. So just let me put back the invitation. Yep. And call up the speakers. Please stand up and take your seats for the panel. And do we have questions from the audience? Let's see. Yeah. Karine, the microphone.
Yeah, I'm Usman Muhammad from the Center for Renewable Energy and Action on Climate Change, an NGO based in Nigeria. What was presented from the Israeli organization was a kind of very informative and constructive technologies that could be used in Africa, especially in the Sahara Desert complex areas. So my question is that why can't African governments seek technology transfer instead of funding? Because with this technology transfer, it will help reverse so much issues of desertification and improve livelihoods with the sort of technologies from the Israeli. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In other words, if I understood correctly, you ask if the technology we use in Israel can serve as a model for other countries. So
yes.
why more? Anat, for example, you spoke about the city of Beersheba in the Israeli Negev. Do you think it can be used as a model for desert cities, other places over the world?
Thank you. First, yes, a model, this is the most important, that very easily you can take the plan and the strategy and copy that. And you can adapt in each area and compare to the city needs. So we use a very simple techniques, and of course we use recycling water, and if you don't have it, it's easy to, not easy, but it's not a problem to build a reservoir, to recycling the sewage, to collect the sewage, to recycling it. And so for us, this is a model. We already tried it. We already copied from town to town. And each of that, it looks different. So the answer is yes, I think very easy to copy that. And if I'll say more is that you can take it whatever you need to add more shade, to add more water, to add more activity and leisure sites. It's compared to the area.
Thank you. Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, over there.
have a question for Michael.
Can you speak close to the microphone?
Yeah, right. So it's quite interesting project, and I'm wondering about how do you select the tree species? It's like, are they all? Sorry.
If I repeat that, you want to know how do we select the tree species,
Yes.
correct?
Is that like more native species, or you consider the non-native as well in terms of considering the climate change?
Okay, I think both Michael and Horia can answer this question, but we'll start from Michael and then Horia.
Well, that's a good question, and thank you. As I mentioned, we have two guiding principles. One, the drought tolerance, and another as more endemic as possible, okay? So we pretty much, before planting, we map our habitats, we know what the soil is and how water it receives, and we pretty much know in what, on average, what the amount of precipitation we'll have. And we have very intensive research on adaptation of the species, and a list of species that we know which species exactly fits the specific habitat. But still, as I mentioned, also the list is very short. For drylands, the list is very short. They are almost all slow-growing, and you have to choose the right density and not only the right species and the right density to plant, and then the right treatment to carry it further. Okay, I hope it's answering.
Horia, in C4, how do you choose the tree types?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. I think some of the points were mentioned already by Michael regarding, the biophysical suitability of the trees, and we do also have, work on mapping how the vulnerability of the species is changing, because the forests and trees, they will also change because of climate change. And is it then so that local species are more adapted or other species are more adapted? But we also put the focus more on local species. Why? Because the local trees, this is not just the biophysical part of it, they have a social part related to the species. So if we have, for instance, like I was showing, the shea tree in the Sahel, which is a very slow growing tree, like when you see the trees, it's 15 years and it's very small, but when you think about what are the benefits and the social, cultural aspect related to it and the gender aspect, then I would in this case think this is maybe more suitable than a tree which is, fast growing, because if you bring a new tree in the system, you need to think about what is the social impact of people. So for instance, just an example, the shea tree is used generally by women, but if I bring an eucalyptus tree as just an example, a plantation, women won't benefit from the eucalyptus tree. So in this case, you are doing kind of a plantation which is not responding to the needs to the most vulnerables. So this is what we do, that we do a social and ecosystem assessment to look at both together to make decision about what tree is suitable or not. Thank you.
Just if allow me, I want to add that my organization, CACAL, which we are the Israeli Forest Service, we have 3 nurseries that we grown the species of the trees, each for each climate zone, to be sure that we have the right species to each of our area.
Wonderful. Do we have other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Kuntai from
Speak close to
Kenya.
the microphone.
I hope everyone can hear me, especially the panelists. Thank you very much for mentioning a bit of indigenous knowledge. Actually, that's what you've mentioned. But I wanted to ask you, how best can we document this data by indigenous communities? Remember, they have their own adaptive strategies. They have their coping mechanisms. How best can we harness and document?
Okay. Horia, do you want to answer that? Or, Christianos?
Yes.
Christianos? Okay.
Yes. I think stakeholder identification and involvement is very key when it comes to this documentation. For us in Ghana and Buipa Authority, whatever we do, we involve the community members. And we know that community members have knowledge in these indigenous tree species. Most of these, our community members go to the forest to pick some of these plant material for herbal medicine and many more. So if you involve community, you develop document and let them sign to it and let them be part of whatever you're doing, very important. So for us, implementing our forest resources enhancement program, we realize traditional knowledge in conservation. Some of the tree species that are even getting extinct, we've been able to get all of them, and in identifying the tree species that we want to plant, community members were very involved, and we're developing community resource management areas for them. We plant some of those trees that used to exist and they are no more or they are getting extinct, and it's very good. And they are aware of them, they know the species, and they know that nobody is supposed to touch those tree species being planted.
Thank you. We have one more, we have two more questions. Yes, and then in the back.
Thank you. I'm Asmar from Indonesia.
From where?
My question.
From where are you?
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah. My question is for Israel, and in presentation you show us that you successfully improved the abundance area through the watering, and then after that, for 9 months, the crop will experience the drought. And then my question is, is it the certain crop you use, or if that is the drought tolerance crop, is that from indigenous Israel or else? And then what is the intervention for soil improvements you did for your project? Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. Thank you. The drought-tolerant species, they are mostly endemic, okay? And we rarely use introducing species today. We did it 50, maybe 40 years ago, and now we're progressing into more endemic species, which are best adapted to the environment, okay? And if you have a very dry winter and the water scarcity is high, or the distribution of the rainfall is different, so they have to survive. And the only species that will survive is the one that is adapted to this drought. We have, as Anat mentioned, nurseries. We have a very progressive research in acclimating the species from all around the country, and we feed them very, it's like a juggling to choose the right one to the right habitat. I hope it's answering, yeah?
Thank you. We have the last question from the back, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Hi, my name is John Lewis, and currently with two companies that do landscape carbon. One is forest carbon, one is agricultural carbon. The latter is called Dugometrics. The first one's Terra Global Capital. But 30 years ago, I was director of agriculture at USAID, and we funded things like C4 and the things that led up to FMNR, and a lot of it in those days, and I'm talking 30 years ago, had to do with soil diagnostics. We heard a little bit about the soil in the Negev, but I never heard about the clay soil in Chad, which gives them such a cotton advantage, for example. And this diagnostic is done with what's called a methodology called participatory mapping, where, as was mentioned, you sit down with the community because they obviously know a lot about the soil or they would have starved, okay? And you do participatory mapping, and University of Bern in Switzerland has pioneered that with some Israeli software, which has been very effective. And I'm just wondering, my question is really, why didn't we hear about that? I mean, I know Israel is a high-tech country, but it's not a big country. And I'm just wondering why the way in which that software is being used in participatory mapping for soil diagnostics. So you choose the tree, because you don't grow shea butter alone. You grow it with something else, depending on your soil. What's underneath? It's called soil fungus and the mycorrhizal process. There are a lot of meetings here about mycorrhizal agriculture. And so that's my question. That's why I came to this meeting, to hear about that Israeli software. And I guess I didn't.
So I'm not sure about the Israeli software, but I think the question is, how do we export the Israeli knowledge of
It's
soil
about participatory
conservation,
mapping, yeah.
Of soil conservation and land management to other places? And it continues to another question I wanted to ask the panel here. How do we collaborate? How do we collaborate? We have expertise from Israel, from other countries. How do you see the working plan of collaboration between us? Raya, do you want to answer that?
No, I just want, first, I
okay.
would really like to join your wondering, because I'm really not aware, we're really not aware about the software. This high-tech is very progressive, but maybe it's still in a stage of developing, or I don't know. And the second, I would be very like to elaborate it further with you after the session, to hear more, and maybe we can use something that was Israeli-based.
Thank you, Michael. So, what do you think about collaboration between Israel and other countries in Africa or other places over the world? How do we collaborate and put a working plan together?
First of all, I think thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, for mentioning the soil. I think this is absolutely crucial, that you know the health of the soil is the base for not only the well-being of people, but also for climate. So I think this is a very important part. And we have in C4, I don't know if you work with C4, but we have a very big soil health division based in Nairobi, and I would be very interested to hear more about this software. Participatory mapping, I think this is something extremely important also, for choosing which adaptive strategies are adapted to the place we are talking about. And it brings me to the question about, upscaling. We have made a lot of mistakes in the past by not taking the time, the energy, and the finance to really contextualize what we are bringing. Because something can work in a very specific area, but then when you bring it to another area, it doesn't work. The impact can be very, very, very negative. So I think participatory mapping and bringing the knowledge, the local knowledge of communities in what we do will help us actually to make the right decision. So for me, it's really like how to have a right mix of scientific and local knowledge to find the right solution with having, like the right tree in the right place with the right people. Because just planting trees or putting trees somewhere, it's not enough. Thank you.
I just want to ask a question, and how you maintain is maybe the most important, especially in the arid zones, how you maintain, so you need a fit species, but how you maintain all these areas.
Okay, it's time to close, and I would like to say a few words for closing. So my esteemed colleagues, we have reached the end of this interesting and inspiring event. Once again, I thank you all for taking part, and I hope that the knowledge that we have shared will help each and every one of us on our mutual road to improve our adaptation strategies and action. I will leave you with the words of John Welsh: change before you have to. Thank you very much, and thanks to our panel. Thank you.